Greetings, welcome to W7U4 continuing with Criterion 1 outcome based curriculum part 4. This is the last part of that criterion. So, in the last unit we presented the details of SCR requirement of Criterion 1 sub criteria 1.2. The outcome of this unit is understand the SCR requirements of same criterion 1 outcome based curriculum sub criteria 1.3, 1.4 and 1.5. 1.3 is concerned with PO, PSO and their mapping with courses, a part of the outcome based curriculum concept, okay, right, outcome based education concept also. So, this sub criterion is concerned with POs and PSOs and how they are related to the courses in the curriculum. So, the details required and the formats of the tables in which the data is to be provided are all the same for both tier 1 and tier 2 institutes. However, the marks allocated are different. 20 for tier 1 institutes and 15 for tier 2 institutes. Notice that tier 2 institutes the curriculum is given by the university. So, the POs, PSOs and their mapping with the courses, POs and PSOs there are 5 marks both for tier 1 and tier 2 institutes. Mapping between the courses and these POs and PSOs, that is 15 for tier 1, 10 for tier 2. So, the PSOs are defined by the department. Again we discussed in an earlier unit what is the process by which PSOs have to be framed by the department. They are program specific outcomes. So, how they are defined, up to 3 PSOs are to be specified and POs are defined by NBA. So, provide details of PSOs for the program currently seeking accreditation. As I mentioned in an earlier unit, we discussed how PSOs have to be arrived at, structure of the PSO statements also. So, detailed explanation of the POs defined by NBA was provided in the earlier unit and the nature of PSO statements, their structure and the features of a well written PSO statement and potential pitfalls in developing the PSO statements, all these things have also been discussed in the earlier units as part of outcome based education. So, you list the program specific outcomes up to 3 of the program under consideration and the visiting team will evaluate their appropriateness and based on that award marks. Okay. So, availability and correctness of the statements of the PSOs. This correctness is a subjective evaluation by the visiting team. Mapping between the courses and POs and PSOs. So, 15 for tier 1 and 10 for tier 2 institutes. The details required and the formats of the tables in which the data is to be provided are all same for both tier 1 and tier 2 institutes. This table is shown in the next slide and the way that the department has to map the courses with POs and PSOs. That means essentially the mapping between COs, course outcomes and POs and PSOs. This is a quite elaborate process and this also has been discussed in earlier units on outcome based education in general. So, the department must have a record of such mapping being done systematically for all the courses. The process must be well defined and the implementation records must clearly show the participation of all the relevant stakeholders in the process of this mapping and this mapping must be justifiable and this will be evaluated by the visiting team based on the kind of justification that is recorded for the mapping that is shown. Okay. So, the courses relevant to the POs and PSOs have to be mentioned and the document evidence of mapping of all courses with POs and PSOs must be there and this is evaluated by the visiting team. So, a connection of the courses with POs and PSOs. Now, this is a crucial course outcomes and course articulation matrix. So, essentially we have listed the courses which are relevant to a particular PO in the previous table. Now, for each of those courses, when you take what is the relation between the course outcomes and the POs concerned. So, this separation is concerned with course outcomes and course articulation matrix. Course articulation matrix is nothing but mapping between the course outcomes and POs and PSOs. So, the details required and the formats of the tables in which data is to be provided, again they are same for both Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutes. However, the marks allocated are different, 30 for Tier 1 and 25 for Tier 2 institutes. Okay. So, course outcomes Tier 1 15, Tier 2 10, course articulation matrix 15 each. So, provide course outcomes for 2 core courses. Notice that in most of the NBA related content that we are providing the SAR, we talk of only core courses. No doubt elective courses also contribute to the attainment of POs and PSOs. It is absolutely clear and agreed that electives do contribute to the attainment of POs and PSOs. But by definition, a student need not take an elective. So, in SAR, we first look at the core activities that all the students engage in, the core courses. Based on the core courses, what is the extent to which POs are being met or PSOs are being met, or what is the extent to which students are able to attain the POs and PSOs, all these calculations are done. Whatever happens because of the electives is significant, important, but that is taken as an addition, okay, not computed in the regular calculations. So, provide the course outcomes for 2 core courses per semester from semester 1 to 8. That means 16 core courses, you show them as samples. It is not that we do this only for these courses, we have to do these course outcomes for every single course, but they must be available also as records for the committee to examine. Whichever course they wish to see, they can have a look at it. But as a part of SCR, include the course outcomes for 2 core courses per semester as samples. The maximum number of outcomes for a course is generally expected to be around 6. See, 3 to 4 credits we assume a course is. So, typically it is 6. In very unusual cases it may exceed that, but then you must be able to justify why the course outcomes have exceeded that number. But the general expected value is 6 for a 3 credit or 4 credit course. It could be smaller if it is only a 2 credit course. COs should reflect on the measurable outcomes towards attaining the POs and PSOs, obviously. So, we have the standard information, title, semester number, course title, course code, then course outcome number and course outcome statement. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and what is the actual statement. And the way that we write the course outcome statements is extremely important part of the OBE process, and ample discussion has taken place in earlier units on writing the course outcome statements. The structure of a CO statement and features of a well written CO statement and potential pitfalls in developing CO statements have been already discussed, as I mentioned in earlier units. Availability of appropriate COs for every course. First it should be available and they must be appropriate. Whether they are appropriate or not is the subjective judgment of the visiting team. And if the visiting team wishes any particular course outcomes to be explained by the faculty, why the mapping is being done like that, the faculty concerned must be able to do so. So, we must be able to justify the COs, the way they are written and the way they are mapped, all these things, and we must have course files for every course and they must be well documented, easily accessible and easily retrievable when the committee wants that. Okay. So, documentary evidence of appropriateness of the CO statements. It is a subjective evaluation by the visiting team. Of course, if there is a difference of opinion, obviously we should never get into an argument with that, accept it and then try to improve the CO statements. So, we prepare a course articulation matrix indicating this kind of a mapping. Allocation of marks 15, same for both tier 1 and tier 2 institutes. So, provide the course articulation matrices for 2 core courses per semester. Earlier we gave such samples, use the same samples. Okay. So, the samples which have been provided in section 1.4.1, same samples you take and for them produce the course articulation matrices. So, this is how the course articulation matrix has to be prepared. The course outcome 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 may be there if it is there. Then program outcomes PO1 to PO11 specified by NBA. Then PSOs, you could have one more PSO or one less PSO. So, whatever be the number of PSOs, the corresponding number of columns should be there in this table. So, here it is shown as 2, but it could be 3 or it could be 1. So, add more columns for PSOs if any, then more rows for CSOs if required, and correlation is 1, 2 or 3. 1 means slight or low correlation, 2 is moderate or medium correlation, 3 is substantial or high correlation, and if there is no correlation, put a dash. Notice that this correlation has to be marked with lot of care. There is a course which is purely technical with no other relationship to society or any of its concerns. Then the outcome, one outcome from such a course, suppose you are mapping to a PO which is related to society and environment and map it as 3, then it becomes very difficult to justify how that mapping can take place. So, please exercise great care and discussion at the department level before you finalize these mappings and put them down, because every single mapping that you enter can be questioned. You must have proper justification for such a mapping. So, the tagging course outcomes with POs and PSOs, determining the correlation levels between COs and POs and PSOs, preparing the course articulation matrix. We have discussed this as part of OBE in earlier unit. Please follow that carefully and establish the correlations and mark them appropriately. Availability of the course articulation matrix, that is the evaluation guideline, and appropriateness. Again, appropriateness is subjective evaluation by the visiting team. So, the exhibits or context to be observed or assessed, documentary evidence of justification of appropriateness of mapping. This is very important. We must show that the mapping is justifiable and we must record the justification. Okay. And correlation levels with various POs and PSOs. Then finally, we come to the program articulation matrix. The course articulation matrix was at the course level, whereas program articulation matrix looks at the entire program level. So, the nature and format of the program articulation matrix is same for both tier 1 and tier 2 institutes. However, the allocation of marks is different, 5 for tier 1 institutes and 10 for tier 2 institutes. This program articulation matrix is a matrix showing the correlations among the courses and POs and PSOs. This is a kind of a very giant snapshot of the entire curriculum, 4 years curriculum, what the students go through in 4 years of the undergraduate engineering program is captured in one single frame, which is the program articulation matrix. So, it shows the correlations among the courses. When we say courses, it includes project works, mini project works or any other activities in which all the students participate, and those activities lead to the attainment of POs or PSOs. All these things will come into the picture, though broadly we use the word courses. So, the correlations among the core activities of the students and POs and PSOs, it shows the mapping. Preparation of such a matrix, again we discussed in an earlier unit based on the general discussion of outcome based education. The evaluation guidelines are availability of the program articulation matrix showing mapping of courses and POs and PSOs, and exhibits to be observed, documentary evidence of the articulation matrix and its relevance. Relevance means again how the mapping has been done between the courses and the POs and PSOs. And notice that course articulation matrix, all the course outcomes are listed, and the mapping to the, like here if you see, all the course outcomes are listed and their mapping to POs is done. But all these course outcomes are condensed into one single row for a course in the program articulation matrix. So, here if you see course code C101, that is first year one course, there is only one row. That means the outcomes that have been there for a course CO 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 etc., and the mappings to the POs. So, they are averaged out and that value is taken as the value for the entire course. Now, that process also you must record clearly. If you are following a different process for consolidating the mapping between the course and a PO, please record that process, show an example of how that is done, because there we have the mapping between individual CO and a PO or PSO. Here there is only one row for a course, that means all that information is captured in a single row. So, how that is done? Show examples and show clearly how a course level mapping is arrived at, and these must be all core courses that you have. Okay. So, this also could include as I said, project work, internship work, activities in which all the students are supposed to participate, and then of course, you must be able to quantify their effect on the attainment of POs and PSOs. How that has to be done is a different aspect, but if the students are undergoing through internship, in what way it is contributing to the attainment of POs, which particular POs, what kind of rubrics are being used, what kind of assessments are being used, all this must be recorded, and then if you are able to record the attainment properly, then you can include rows for that. So, there will be many rows for this, and of course, we have 11 columns for the POs. Then similarly, there will be 2 or 3 or 1 column for PSOs. So, we have a giant matrix showing what the entire 4-year program is doing in terms of enabling the students to attain the POs and PSOs, and what is the structure of this entire curriculum. So, that is captured in this program articulation matrix, and in fact, looking at this in a glance, we can easily figure out also what is the capability of the given curriculum in terms of addressing the POs or PSOs. As mentioned earlier, if a particular column is very sparse, if you do not find many activities which are mapping to that particular PO, like for example, PO 5, if it is not being very rare, but if it is not being addressed well, and if that entire column has mostly blanks, it means that we are doing nothing to teach the students about the modern tool usage and design. So, it shows at a glance what is the capability of the curriculum to address the POs and PSOs, and this is to be prepared with a lot of care. So, the process of determining correlation between an entire course and PO, PSO must be explained, as just now I mentioned. One row of the program articulation matrix. As noted earlier, this process was explained in the earlier unit on the general OBE, and it would be helpful to include details of making such entries for sample courses in order to explain to the visiting committee, provide certain samples worked out clearly, how that mapping has been eroded. The entries in the matrix need to be justified. So, as I mentioned, the articulation matrix program level must be prepared with a lot of care, and you must have enough data to justify the mapping correctly. Then course files must include all these details and must be available for inspection, easily retrievable whichever course file is required. Then program articulation matrix provides a comprehensive overview of the entire curriculum, core courses in one single table. So, an extremely important table to be prepared with great care. And as I mentioned, this is quite useful in quickly identifying the POs, PSOs that are not addressed well by the curriculum, not addressed well. A column is sparsely populated, has mostly low correlation values. This means that the corresponding PO, PSO is not addressed adequately. So, if it is a tier 2 institute, it must have some activities planned, some additional content delivered to bridge that gap, and if it is a tier 1 institute, it must revise the curriculum appropriately in order to address that particular weekly addressed PO. Okay. So, this information can be used by tier 1 institutes to check the quality of the curriculum, and by tier 2 institutes to design the content beyond the curriculum that needs to be developed. Okay. So, that completes our discussion of criterion 1, a fairly elaborate criterion, outcome based curriculum with several components, and the spirit of it being same for tier 1 and tier 2 institutes, but the marks allocations, the sub criteria being different for them, but by and large the spirit of the outcome based curriculum is same for tier 1 and tier 2 institutes, and this is extremely important. So, the data must be provided well, it must be easily available for inspection by the visiting team, it must be easily retrievable whichever information is required. So, appropriate course informations must be maintained with proper numbering, and people must be familiar with retrieving the required files and all these things, but an extremely important and very elaborate criterion. So, we have spent the entire week on this single criterion, criterion 1 outcome based curriculum. So, with that we complete our discussion of criterion 1, and in the next week we look at criteria 2 and probably some more criteria of the SCR. So, happy going, and we will meet again next week with the next criterion of SCR. Thank you. Thank you.